Hello, everyone, and welcome to Behind the Frame, a video series where we take a closer look at some of our featured artists and exhibits at the Johnson Heritage Post Art Gallery in Grand Marais, Minnesota. I'm Gallery Director Aaliyah Markson, and today I'm delighted to be sitting down with Minnesota artist Kim Gordon. Gordon is a lifelong artist whose exhibit at JHP titled Between Earth and Sky combined her oil paintings with her unique batik-style paintings. Here to tell you more is Kim Gordon herself. Let's start with hearing about how you started on the journey with art. Have you always been an artist since you were a kid?
Okay. Well, I had the good luck to be raised by two visual artists who met in art school and married and had children, and I was the only child who ended up wanting to be a visual artist. So I've always identified as an artist. I never thought that I would do anything else, though I have many other interests. I've always drawn and painted. I used to sit under my dad's easel and swipe paint from him while he was painting and do my own little paintings. So it's been a part of my life forever. I never remember a time when I didn't have art materials along with my regular toys to play with. That was something that we just did.
And did you end up going to school for it, I presume, because it was this big passion of yours?
Yes, I actually have a degree in art education because I got practical my last year and thought, oh, you might have to actually earn a living doing this. So, but my background in college was fine art, particularly drawing. I have always loved painting, and I have painted all of my life, and particularly all my adult life. I've done a lot of painting, outdoor plein air painting, as well as studio painting, and I love both of those for different reasons. But a few years ago, I just happened upon a sample of watercolor batik, and I could not tell what it was. I couldn't tell if it was a silk screen or if it was a watercolor or a woodcut. I knew there was some graphic thinking behind it, and I was really intrigued by the image, and I was determined to learn how to do it. So that began a whole process of experimenting and learning, and I found a workshop that I could take and researched online, finally figured out how to do it. It was quite a process, and I was very persistent, and really am intrigued by it because the process is almost completely opposite of oil painting. It's different thinking completely. So that's both a challenge and sort of a pleasure. Oil painting is very spontaneous. You can work on the surface, you can scrape it down, you can glaze over it, you can gesso over it and start over again if you want. Batik is much more sort of a performance. It's like you pick up your violin and you play, and whatever happens during that, the bad notes you hit, the part where you drop your bow, all of that's part of that little performance, and you can't change it at the end. It is what it is. And I really love that about it. It's always intriguing. You never know where you're going to end up. And so it's always a surprise, sometimes a bad one, but always intriguing, always makes you want to try again.
Very cool. Can you tell us a little bit about batik? I was reading just a little bit online, but I don't know very much about it.
Okay, batik is ancient. It is probably the oldest way of creating a decorated fabric besides weaving together threads of different colors. And it was developed most likely in Java. Batik is a process of using a resist, and a resist is anything that pushes water away. So in traditional batik, you use wax because that resists water. It's also removable from whatever surface that you put it on. And you start out with the lightest color, and you put wax wherever you want that color to stay that color, and then you put another layer of color over it. Wherever the wax is, the new color can't go. And whatever you want to stay that second color, you put more wax over it, and you gradually layer wax and color. I work on kinwashi rice paper instead of cloth, and I use watercolor instead of dye, but other than that, the process is the traditional process of working with a wax resist. Because the colors are translucent, whatever doesn't have wax on it which is an overlapping of colors. You have the blending of the colors through the layers. So there are a lot of aspects to it that you have to keep in mind. You have to work with negative space. You don't work directly. You don't paint that tree. You sort of work the colors around the tree until you're left with the tree, because the tree might have the darkest colors, and the darkest colors come last. So it's always intriguing. You never quite know what you've got until you're done. In the process of working, the wax becomes fatigued and distressed and will start to crack. And so color starts leaking into areas, and a cracked look is one of the characteristics of batik, and it adds a lot of depth and beauty that you really can't control. So it's another kind of wild card element that keeps it really fresh and interesting. I usually have a drawing. I sometimes will do a value drawing if it's a color image, so that I know what my steps are going to be, because you build color value and value as you go. You start out with the wax is clear, the paper is white, you do your lightest colors, so you're working with very light colors without much value change in the beginning, and it's kind of hard to see what you're doing unless you have planned it. So because the rice paper is transparent or translucent, I do a drawing in black marker actually to go underneath it, so I can see what my shapes, and then I'll have a color sketch next to that so I can refer to color changes. And I'll often have some photo reference for sort of color harmonies that I want to work with. And those are always photos that I've taken. I never work from photos that I have not taken personally.
Of the paintings in this exhibit, I know it's like choosing a favorite child, but are there any that really just happened just the way you wanted? There are ones that you especially love of yours?
That one's always tricky. There's some subjects that I really like because the shapes are fun, and those are turtles. I have one turtle piece in this exhibit, and I usually have a turtle piece in every exhibit, and it very often sells. There's just something about turtles. They're so quiet and sort of peaceful, yet very alert, and they have beautiful reflective shapes. Their shells are usually wet and reflecting the light around them, and they're in water. I love working with water. Water is a huge challenge, and so that involves a lot of elements that I like. There's a piece that is on the promotional postcard for the show that's a very simple, almost monochromatic image of a sailboat, and that was actually from a photo that I took in the harbor in Grand Marais. And then I did some drawings of it, and I thought, I think I could batik this. So it's just about the very simple form of the boat in the sail, and then a lot of interest in the sky and how the water works, all done in a fairly limited palette of blues. And I felt like that just really, it was such a simple idea, but very evocative of the feeling of watching a sailboat on water on a day with beautiful clouds. So I'm very fond of that one.
The name of your exhibit is Between Earth and Sky. Can you talk a little bit about how you came to that idea for this exhibit, that kind of theory behind it?
Yeah, I was thinking a lot about titles, and titles can often be very sort of incomprehensible. And I'm a believer in trying to be sort of concrete with my words. And a lot of the images have water in them. And I think a lot about the impact of the sky and the clouds on landforms below, the shadows that are cast, how color looks, depending on the sky conditions. So because the subject always is sort of falling in that mid range of between the sky conditions and what is below the sky, I thought that title hopefully sort of encapsulated all of that. The images are pretty wide. I'm not working on a single idea. I'm working primarily with landscape, and I'm very interested in how light falls on form. So once again, Between Earth and Sky seem to encapsulate that interest of mine.
Wonderful. And then last question, is there anything else that you want people to keep in mind or think about when they're walking through and enjoying your exhibit?
Sure. One thing that batik, I think a lot of people are familiar with the name, but don't quite understand the process, is that all the strokes that you see in the batik paintings are strokes of wax that have protected a color below it. So if they can, just imagine all the wax strokes being put down over each layer of color, they'll have a better sense of how batik works. I do iron the wax out of the paper at the very end, so it's not still in the paper. But if they can think of all those little brush strokes not as paint strokes but as wax strokes, I think that's helpful. And then the oil paints, I think, are very reflective of my love of light falling on form. So that's even though the landscapes and the waterscapes are very diverse, that is my driving interest.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. We're so excited to have people down to check out this wonderful exhibit.
Great. Thank you very much. I'm very honored to be able to have a show here.